Now, get ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey, and welcome to Oilers live episode number 16, number 17. I don't know, somewhere in there. I'm going to try doing them on off nights now, but wanted to do this one after the Oilers California road trip. So I've got Mike Thursa joining me. And thanks, Mike, for joining. Welcome.
Hey, buddy.
So we're here. We're going to talk Oilers road trip, and among other things, California road trip, of course, just recently. Hopefully, we get some call-ins today. We've got a hard stop at 9 Mountain. Tried to do it a little bit earlier this time as well, so we could get some of our Eastern folks on and maybe listening and hopefully engaged today. What, first off, heard you last night on Reed Wilkins, by the way. A little call in there. I know you were on hold for quite a while. Your thoughts, let's not just dwell on one game. I mean, we've got an hour tonight. Let's talk about all 4 games. Your thoughts on the road trip, good, bad, ugly?
Bit of both. I guess anytime you go 500 on the road, I guess you're treading water, and that's okay. But probably was a road trip that going 3 for 4 was a definite possibility. Arizona game, Arizona was better for a portion of the period, but they're still Arizona, so we come out of that with a win. The LA game, LA I think was the only team that was there, and a lot happened in that, and I'm sure you want to get into that in detail. But after that game, I'm sure Hitchcock said some words in the dressing room and challenged some people, and they showed up in Anaheim, and I think it took about 10 minutes for us to get sort of into that game. Cam Talbot played well, and come out of there with a 4-0 shutout, and then go into San Jose, and some bad bounces and bad breaks. But I think it's pretty clear that San Jose is in a different stratosphere than the Edmonton Oilers are right now. Yeah,
stratosphere for sure. San Jose's got a hell of a team. There's no doubt there. They are outstanding. Beginning of the season, there was some hope, right? Carlson didn't seem to be clicking. I was at a game in San Jose when they played the Leafs. There was nothing about Carlson in that game that really wowed me, but man, that defensive core, it is the stuff that dreams are made of as far as hockey teams go. And how often, in fact, I can't even think of a time where the defense has driven the offense like it does on that team. It's unbelievable.
Well, I think it mirrors a team that used to be in Anaheim with Pronger and Niedermeyer, to be honest.
Yeah, you know what? That's fair. And, those are 2 big names. Of course, Carlson and Burns in the same category of players for sure. So my thoughts, on the road trip. Obviously, Arizona is a must-win game, right? If we didn't win there, the season's for sure lost. You go into LA, and that was absolutely horrendous showing. I think everybody, Oilers, Hitchcock, players, they all know what came out of that. Now, interestingly, I can't remember if I heard it on Oilers Now, or maybe I heard Reed talk about it yesterday, or Rob Brown, who knows. But my understanding is that, sorry, I'm just reading the comments.
I see it too.
Yeah. My understanding is Hitchcock really laid into the players after that LA game. And rightfully so. I mean, there's no A lot of it, what I've heard is that a lot of it was around the lack of response to the elbow to McDavid. And that's no big surprise. They went into Anaheim, and you know Oilers Nerd Alert. I know Oilers Nerd Alert. After that game, he asked a question, which was it about a hot goaltender and some poor offense on one side, or was it, what was the game story? And then I commented on that to say, would we ask that question if the other team won, right? Like, do we ask that same question, or are we just, being overly critical of the Oilers? And to some extent, that's true. I mean, as fans, we're always passionate and critical. But the one thing that did come out of that Anaheim game for me is we're not good enough, right? Like, we won that game. Obviously it was on the strength. Talbot kind of kept us in early, and then we got some good bounces, which we rarely get. And then we held them off the score sheet. You need good goaltending in order to be a playoff team. We got it. And we got some offense and some bounces when we needed it, but we certainly could have played a better game. But I'm happy. I'm happy to get any night you get a 4-0 win. You got to smile and move on, cheer for the win. San Jose, outclassed, no doubt. To me, what it does show, and I've heard it a few times and read about it and done everything, is maybe the hardest part for us as fans, and you got to come to this sort of realization, is this team is a 500 team, right? And we can talk about bad bounces all we want, right? But you don't get bounces unless if you're in the offensive zone, right? And we just didn't spend any time there, right? Hitch called it the critical areas, and I can't disagree with him, right? Like, we didn't. What were the shots? Like, San Jose had 40 shots, and we had or 35, and we had 22 or something like that. I know it was 13 or 14 shot differential, and it wasn't. That's not pretty, right? So at the end of the 4-game road trip, we come back home, and there's some realization that the team, just isn't really skilled enough to play right now with these, top tier teams like the likes of San Jose. Can we get there? Yeah, of course we can. I mean, Clefbaum is a huge loss for this team. Like, we just have not been the same, right? I mean, we've lost now, 8 of the last 10, and since he's been out, and that's big. But I guess the question now for me, and here's the good of it all, is anybody out there believe that we're only 2 points? We just lost 8 of our last 10, and we're only 2 points out of a playoff spot? I mean, how ridiculous is that?
We're not losing ground here, but we're not gaining it either. What's done is done. Some people were asking some questions before. I got a couple things more in detail, I guess, about the road trip, but I'll fire away here, Mike.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess we'll start with so we lose 7-2 against the Sharks. Lucic and Chason scored. Clearly, San Jose is in a different weight class, and I don't think that can be argued by anybody. Since we saw them in the playoffs and beat them 2 years ago, I think they've improved their club. I think that's obvious. They were missing Vlasic, who's a Olympic caliber defenseman, and we're missing Clefbaum. So I don't think it'd be argued that they're not a better team than us. We win 4-0 against the Ducks. You get a pair of assists from Caleb Jones and Nuge. McDavid, Jesse Brodziak gets a shorthanded goal. And Lucic absolutely dismantled Brandon Montour, kind of leading to Draisaitl's goal there. Talbot gets a shutout. I don't think it's any coincidence that Lucic got a goal last night after the way he's been playing and who he's been playing with. I think putting him with Nugent and Yessi is kind of a way to get him going. And I think he was challenged after the LA game. Like, we lose 4-0 to the Kings. Don't even really want to talk about the goals in that. The only thing to me in that game that's really worth talking about is Drew Doughty and Jeff Carter both took liberties on the captain. For me, easily the hardest game of the season, let alone the road trip to watch and stomach that. The losing is one thing. It was a big game that would have helped in the standings and helped give us some separation on a team that's struggling to gain a foothold in the Western Conference or the NHL. But they're not a bad team. They have some veteran players there. They just haven't found it yet. And Jonathan Quick was hurt for a lot of the season. For me, I find that troubling. To this point, I'm going to field a rhetorical question, but is it what we want as fans, for Connor McDavid to go basically Dean Youngblood and start fighting because nobody else on his team will stick up for him? I personally don't want to see him drop the gloves. That's not what I think we brought him in here for. He did it in junior. He hurt his hand, missed time. We can't afford that whatsoever. But I believe every hockey player has enough moment where they break and they say, "I've had enough," and then they drop the gloves. They go to that extent. I have a theory as to why nobody answered the bell for Connor in that game, and I might be way off base, but I'll fire away anyways. I think under McClellan, and basically as a result of the bad penalty kill that we had, that Lotide did his rant about, players were handcuffed and stapled to the bench, and if they took any undisciplined penalties, they just didn't play. I think LA gave Hitchcock a teachable moment, and the reins were loosened, and Hitchcock probably got a chance to finally get into talking about his philosophy towards the game rather than just straight X and O's. It's just a theory of mine, but when nobody goes to bat for your franchise player, that goes against everything, all your hockey instincts that you're brought up with, through your minor hockey. And I'm pretty sure after the game, Hitch challenged the team not only for their play, but also for their brotherhood for one another. You've probably seen it. I'm pretty sure you have watched Ice Guardians, but it gets into the alpha male stuff. The wolf pack. If somebody attacks, part of the pack and nobody sticks up for the pack, then you've submitted. And I think it's absolutely essential for people to if somebody takes liberties on your captain or Draisaitl or your marquee players, that there's other people that you have employed and they're a part of this team already that need to take people to task. I'm not pointing fingers at any one player because there's 18 guys on the team that could have stood up. People want to say Lucic, he's buddies with the guys on the Kings. Maybe so. What's Zach Cassian's excuse? Nurse, Jujhar Khaira, the new guys that they brought in. You want to endear yourself to a new team? We'll step up. Brandon Manning was in the lineup. Petrovic was in the lineup. And the other thing that sort of bothered me about that is, when the two referee system came in, that what we were sold was that was supposed to help clean up stuff behind the play. Well, that was definitely behind the play. There was nobody in the way, and there was a ref trailing, and no call. And so you're not alone, or you're not just not cleaning up stuff behind the play. The next night in Anaheim, McDavid gets cross-checked into the boards. Call it a push, call it boarding, call it cross-checking. The ref's 10 feet away. He's looking right at it. He doesn't raise his arm. And during that whole play, if you watch the replay really closely, he gets hammered into the boards, and the guy actually takes out his feet at the same time. I know that Hitchcock said something, because after that, I think it was Joseph, the new kid that the call-up went and kind of addressed that a little bit. He's probably not the right guy to send, but that got addressed. Draisaitl, was getting stick work there, and Darnell Nurse came right over and flattened the guy.
Yeah.
He took a penalty, but it doesn't matter. You have to stand up for your star players. You have to. And yeah, that's my little rant on that.
So here's my thought on all of that. I mean, I don't buy into the friend thing either. LA friend stuff. I mean, Lucic is Lucic. He's either gonna. It's not the first time that we've seen him come out flat like that, and it's certainly not going to be the last. He seems to be. I mean, it's enough to drive me insane some days, right? Like some days he's in there, and some days he's not. And LA he wasn't. But we can't sit down on Lucic, right? Because there was nobody else. I mean, it wasn't just him. I mean, it was everybody. And whatever the case was, right? Nobody came to defend their star player. And then I'm not even going to say that when McDavid got pushed into the boards, we really defended him there either. I mean, we didn't. There's been a couple of instances, and it's been like that all year. Let's look at the league though in general. That's been sort of the case this year. First half of the year, it's starting to get a little bit meaner there. I don't think Philly had a fight for the first time ever until like game 40, right? Which is, practically unheard of. So the league's a little bit, league's softened up early, but it by the sounds of it, and if you saw the bout between Reeves and who was it last night? And the Rangers. We're going to start seeing a little bit of playoff hockey come up now. That, I think, is good news for us. I think, we're a bigger, heavier team, with, I hope that, and it looks like we'll probably see more of Manning now that Petrovic is injured, and I don't think there's word yet as to how long he'll be out, but, we're going to need some team toughness here right away. But as far as LA is concerned, I don't know. I don't. My theory I wouldn't agree on the theory part in terms of people worried to take stupid penalties. I think this is exactly as Hitchcock called it. This was a situational team, right? This is a team that has a hard time motivating themselves without first being motivated by a serious loss. And that's not the first time. The same thing goes, right? Like with how we play each and every game. You take that into like a micro moment of any hockey game that the Oilers have played, and that we score a goal and then the other team scores two, right? Or they score in bunches, right? Like we need a game. We need to have those games where we're up 3-0, or our hope of winning the game is, it's always on the line, right? This team has to find some motivation within. And, love Lucic, hate him. Most people aren't his fan right now. But he hit the nail on the head, right? Like this team last night in his post-game comments, he said that, there's no cancer. It's not about management. And a lot of you, as I know, there's a tremendous amount. I'd probably say it's in the 90 percentile range, want to see Chiarelli gone. I did admire Lucic for saying this. Hey, this is not about management right now. These guys, the one thing about NHL players that, they're a proud bunch, right? And they should be, right? They made it to the highest level of hockey that's out there. Now you got a paycheck. and you're earning good money, that's got check time to me, right? You gotta act like a professional and get out there and earn your pay. I know I do in my job every day. I've got to go and earn my dollars every day. They're no different, and part of that earning those dollars is about coming to the rink and playing hard games like LA and otherwise. And right now, who knows? Maybe we maybe we have another Ferret situation 5 years from now where he says a lot of the young guys are out partying all night. I don't think that's true in this case. I think that they just need to find it within themselves to really do well and not be so situational in how they respond to games. I think though, now let's move on, because we have what's coming up is maybe the most critical point in our season, right? 6 of the next 7 at home, divisional games in there, a lot of other things. The one good thing that the road trip had was we won the games we needed to win, like Arizona and Anaheim. I mean, we didn't, while it was, a tough loss against LA, that didn't hurt us in the standings. And we're not catching San Jose, let's be honest. So, at the end of the day, that's kind of where we're at, right? But what do you think? What do you think are the legitimate chances of us coming out of this 6-7 road trip as a playoff team, or not road trip, homestand as a playoff team, Mike?
Yeah, well, I guess the question is, do they win? Between 5 and 6 games on the homestand, and that's a big ask for them. They're a roller coaster hockey team. They're streaky. It's hot or cold. There's no happy medium, and I don't see us as having really an identity yet. We have an identity line, I guess they want to try, but are we a skill team, or are we a grind kind of 90s Oilers team? I don't know. It's kind of different every night. You don't know what you're going to get. You don't know if they're going to get up for a game. Honestly, Mike, what scares me worse is when they play some of the so-called weaker teams. They don't seem to get up for that and take teams lightly, and before they know it, they're down, and they're down big. Like, I think they sort of escaped with the win against Arizona. I don't know if it was all that deserving. I think they got what they deserved in LA, and probably fortunate in Anaheim to walk away with a shutout win in that one. You can't really criticize a win. You got it. That is what it is. And against San Jose, I look at that more as about a 5-2 game instead of 7-2. But they're just outclassed against San Jose. So,
but be honest here. What's your thought? Does this team have the talent after the next 7 games to be looking at a playoff spot? After this 6 games at home, and let's keep in mind, one of those games, that game that's on the road, is in Vancouver, right? And I would say that Vancouver should be a team that we should beat most nights, right? What's your thoughts? I mean, does the team have the talent?
Well, Vancouver seems to have our number this year, but Pettersson's hurt right now. I'm not sure what his status is. I think I saw today that they're hoping he gets back on the ice tomorrow or Friday, but getting back on the ice, getting back into a game. Andre Sekera has been back on the ice for a month now, and I don't think he's coming back in the next 6 weeks, if at all, this season.
To me, that's the scariest thing, is Sekera coming back right now, right? Especially right now. I mean, I don't know. Who knows what if he was to come back, what he's going to be like, right? I mean, if it's anything like last season, here's a guy that it deserves to be playing top pairing minutes, but is going to take a tremendous amount of time to get back into game form. And I'm not sure we're going to see it for quite a while. My biggest concern with this team, and I would say to you that, if we, and Loke says Sekera may never play again. And you and I, Mike, we've talked about that offline, and I think that's probably close to the truth. Loke also brought up something that I think is the truth with this team. And, I don't always agree with them, but there's times like now that I do. I think in my mind, when I see this team play, the biggest problem that they have is the breakout, right? And until we can figure that out, until we can find defensemen that can transition the puck out of the zone, north-south, right? We're in a heap of trouble, right? And, I don't know how to put this, but I think the lack of secondary scoring has a tremendous amount to do with the fact that we can't get our forwards the puck on the fly the way we need to. And the players just aren't good enough to do it on their own, the forwards, right? And that, who knows how many teams would have that same problem if they were in our boat, in our shoes, right? And I think, when you look at Clefbaum, right, like that was one of the things that we wanted out of him. And now we've got Darnell Nurse playing Clefbaum's minutes. And let's be honest about Nurse. I like Nurse. I'm not going to be as critical as some have been on Nurse, but he doesn't transition the puck up the ice very well. He skates it up great until he takes that shot on the left side and always hits the goalie, right? We've seen that a million times. Jones is the guy right now that is our puck mover on the defense. Larson's never been really been that guy. I mean, he's solid. I like Larson a lot, but he's not that guy. And certainly none of the other players are that guy. Petrovic might be the closest we have. And if he's out for any considerable amount of time, we're in a lot of trouble. I think we have a chance in the next 7 games to be in a playoff spot, and I think this is our season on the line. So these guys need to get whatever it is, whatever motivation internally they need to get there. But that with Petrovic gone, and I wasn't a big fan of him anyway. But he was maybe the only other guy that was really moving the puck up the ice. I am considerably scared of what our chances are in the next 6 or 7. Dash 8 says, Baron Bouchard are the guys. I completely agree. We talk about the prospects and getting through this season. SPR, the Oil Knight, as you guys know him, he is talking about the prospects, the D prospect and the team prospects for next year. I'm bullish on that. We still have, obviously, everybody knows a couple contracts that we need to get rid of. But right now, thank God we have Manning. Yeah. Right now we're in a terrible heap of trouble unless if some of these defensemen can start moving the puck up. Who draws in if Petrovic spends significant timeout, Mike? What's your thought? Like, is it Benning?
Yeah, I think Benning's a leg up on Brendan Manning. Just from the puck moving ability, I think Brendan Manning's physical, but I don't think he contributes that much into the actual game of hockey, other than some stiff checks and probably almost like Nurse clearing the front of the net, which is important to a degree. But today's NHL, you got to be able to transition the puck, and right now, Caleb Jones and Darnell Nurse's wheels are the only way we get pucks out. So I shouldn't say that. I think Chris Russell is underrated for some of the things he can do with the puck as well. He helps stabilize the D too, but that now there's talk that when Klefbom comes back and if Petrovic would be healthy, that Caleb Jones gets sent down. I saw that today and I just shook my head. That was, I think, something that Brendan Ulrich on Oilers Now this at lunchtime was trying to sell. I'm not buying it myself. I think Caleb Jones is right up there as one of our better D.
Yeah, well, so I couldn't agree more. I mean, Jones has been a revelation for this team. And this has always been sort of a fear for me was nights like last night, though, right? And one thing that we need to remember is Jones is still a rookie, right? Like he's still learning the game. And last night he was exposed, on more than one occasion, one glaring occasion there, obviously. And don't get me wrong. I mean, one game, everybody's got a bad game in them. I think, though, that, what we need is we need to see a couple more, how he bounces back from this. I sure hope they don't send him down right now until they see what his reaction is to having a bad game, because he's exceeded expectations. Mike Toy asks, what's your opinion on Gravel? I'll let you field that, Mike.
I like Kevin Gravel, and Bob Stauffer, I think it was right around the time that they acquired Manning, and Petrovic was trying to pass Kevin Gravel as an 8-9 defenseman. I strongly disagree with that. I don't mind him a lot of nights, in the third pairing D role. I think you want to not really notice your defenseman. If you don't notice them, I think that means they had a good game, and most of the time, I think he's had a pretty good game. He could be a little bit more physical, but I saw a little bit of that coming out in the last game he was in there. So I've got nothing wrong. I like Kevin Gravel. Yeah,
I'm a big fan too, and again, I mean, if they're talking about sending Jones down and Gravel, they seem to give him his due. The one thing that we miss out on, right, as just fans watching the game, is we don't see these guys in practice, right? And I think that plays. I know that plays a major part in what line pairings they get, where they're played, how they're even viewed by the coach, right? I mean, if you're so I'm really curious about Gravel's practice abilities, right? Because come game time, I think that he's been solid. In fact, to your point, I always say from a defenseman's point of view, if you don't notice a guy, then they're doing their job, right? I mean, you always notice defensemen when they have the glaring errors, right? And you either notice them glaring errors or their offensive performance is amazing. And with Gravel, we don't notice them. I think that's a good thing. I've been surprised that not everybody, but a number of people, Stauffer mainly, calling him a 7-8. I'm a big fan. I'd rather see Gravel. What's that?
It was an 8-9 defenseman.
Was it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't get it, and sometimes, and I got a lot of respect for Stauffer. I know he's employed by Oilers, so he can't necessarily. I mean, he's open about that. He doesn't necessarily come out and say exactly everything, but I think there are times where he's hearing something in his ear from the team on a player, and he might internalize that and let everybody know. Yeah, I definitely don't see an 8-9 defenseman there. I see a guy that is easily a third pairing, and on this team this year, he's been a second pairing D on occasion. Because I'll tell you, there was a stretch of 3 or 4 games where I was big on Benning. I thought he played well, but that was it. And we're 40 plus games into the season. You need to see more than 2 or 3 games out of a guy. So we need better than that. Guys, I have a strict deadline at 9 o'clock. I got my own hockey game to play tonight, and I do want to, if anybody's got anything that they want to talk about tonight, talk about the 7 games coming, you can call in at 587-907-5483. I know there's a couple people that said they might tune in a little bit later and give us a call. That's 587-907-5483, 907 live. And now, if you want to call in and chat with Mike or I, or give your real thoughts on the game, then let us know. Sorry, a little bit of background noise here. What do you think we can do, sort of interim, until, or what do you think? This has been bugging me. What's been gnawing at me for the last 2 years is that Sekera has been out for 2 years and we've done nothing about it. Trade deadline's 7 weeks away, I think.
Usually comes up first part of March.
Yeah.
Not sure the date.
7 weeks. Is there anything this team can do between now and then that if we can secure a playoff spot in the next, little while, and we have a chance, being 2 points back, we've got a legitimate shot. What's your thought? Is anything that you've been thinking might be able to help this team?
Well, I think more tinkering needs to be done. I think, as much as people don't want to hear this, I think some of the most crucial GM work by this GM needs to be done right away. Because there isn't quite enough there. They need a little bit more just to make the playoffs, in my opinion. And if you want to do something in the playoffs, then you need to, swing for the fences. And the problem is that we've been handicapped by all the contracts that are handed out. So there isn't, we're tying into Sekera's LTR money right now. The Brandon Manning move, to me, might be the final nail in Chiarelli's coffin, because he might have totally handicapped himself to be able to do anything to rectify the situation that we're in. I really have no understanding of what the thought process is there in bringing him in. To me, it's like he made a move for Petrovic in the morning, and by the afternoon already was hedging his bet on that, so brought in Manning as an insurance package for Petrovic, which is an insurance package for Benning. It's dominoes. I think people can suggest all kinds of wild things, but that doesn't work out in reality. There's another party when you're going to make a trade that has to agree to it, and so you've got a problem with not being able to just take somebody off somebody's hands because you can't fit them in, and who do you give up, and no trade clauses and everything that's involved with that. You got to be able to do something that works. So to me, you've got a log jam on the back end. So there's going to be one or two guys on the back end that are expendable. Well, you don't really trade people that are injured, so you got to forget about anybody that's hurt. So that leaves a select few that you can deal with on the back end. But really, if everybody was healthy, we've got 10 defensemen, for 6 spots. So somebody's expendable on that end of it. There's a lot of underachieving forwards. I don't think anybody is going to do another sort of Strome for Spooner. You can't make a deal based on hope that somebody's going to resurrect their career. You need something that's proven. So for me thinking about that, it either means you're getting rid of some picks and some players to get something that's tangible to come in. personally, I wouldn't get rid of a first-round draft pick. I hear that talk, and it drives me insane, because if the season doesn't go anywhere and you sacrificed your first-round draft pick just to make the playoffs to save somebody's job, that's a failure. And it's time to start succeeding. We owe that to Connor McDavid, the franchise guy. So to me, something like a 2-for-1 kind of deal, you get rid of 2 players to bring in one, that's, your 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 goal scorer to bring in a little bit of help.
So if anybody's going to call in today, 587-907-5483, one of the things I'm kind of curious about, and lots has been talked about this on Twitter and elsewhere, is if you're the Oilers, do you trade away a pick in order to this year in order to better the team? My personal opinion is, and I say it with a little bit of hesitation, because I don't, there's 2 things. One is, and we've talked about this at length, but I think Chiarelli's done a decent job of building up, a cupboard of prospects that we never had before. But I think that his negotiation skills may be the worst in the league when it comes to trades. And so my concern is if he's behind the reins on a trade with the pick, that we don't get the return we really need. And we do it again, like the Manning thing, where we pick up a contract that we really don't need. How many contracts, how many defense contracts do we have going into next season? It's next to crazy. But if the right trade is out there, I'm all for trading a pick. But again, my biggest concern is how do you let this guy negotiate the trade? It's so hard to, there's 2 sides right now, right? There's the fire Chiarelli yesterday side, and then there's there's 3 sides, and then there's a bunch of people that say wait and see what happens. And then there's the group that says, well, yeah, sure, you can do that, but who's going to be put in place, right? And that's probably my biggest thing. Sport Major says, don't trade the pick. You can call in too, by the way, 587-907-5483. So Sport Major says, don't trade the pick. Mike, you trading a pick?
I'm not trading a first.
No?
No, and you know what? I think it's a bit of wishful thinking. Like, who you trading a first round pick for is my question. And if you're making that kind of serious move, you want a serious player coming back. The whole question becomes salary. Can you afford to pay him? Does it fit under the cap? And so the Tarasenko ideas I've seen shoveled around and that.
I think that's ridiculous. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a number of people sort of going in on the Periscope feed that are saying don't trade the pick. And I wonder though how much of that is driven by who would be making the trade. I'm not against trading a pick, right? I think by the time the deadline comes, we'll have a clear idea of where we're going to sit. And I know Sport Major is probably going to comment right away because I know his feeling on that. But if we are, we can always trade later rounds as well. But if we're sitting in a playoff spot. And legitimately sitting there, and it looks like we're going to make that final run for it. And that pick's not going to be in the first half of the first round. Then I might consider it if the right trade came up, and that trade included shedding some of the salary we had today. Right, and that would be the reason for me using that pick for a trade would be, if it meant that, if it's not going to happen, as wishful as it would be, trading away the Lucic contract, right? But if that came along with trading, the first round pick, then yeah, I could do it. But if we're not sitting in we're not sitting anywhere near a playoff spot, or it's not clear whether we're going to be there, I have a hard time with that, right? I mean, and I think that any GM, Chiarelli included, would realize that just how bad that could be if that pick ended up being a lottery win. I hope, though, we never win another lottery, the draft lottery.
Yeah, exactly.
Forever, and I just hope we're not actually involved in another draft lottery. The season, though, is boiling down to these, really the next few games, because they're so critical to where we sit in the standings, and these are so must-win, these home games. What's your thought on the fact that just hold on. We got the Rinks, Jeff Nash calling in. He's been on hold for 2 minutes. I missed him. So,
Jeff, how's it going?
Good. Sorry I left you on hold so long.
No, that's okay. I'm listening to your... Yeah, no worries.
Still getting the hang of this.
No worries.
If I knew what I was doing, it would probably be Mike hosting, and I'd be just a call-in user. Quick, because it's the topic that we're talking about. Your thoughts? Would you trade the pick or a pick before the trade deadline?
Boy, you know what? It's kind of a tricky situation, because I feel like we're always in this predicament of who do we trade? Do you bundle in a draft pick with a player or whatnot? So it's hard to say. I must admit, I'm not a huge expert on the value of each pick and how it translates into trading, and who do you trade it for, like who's on the market, who would actually want to come to Edmonton. So I'll leave that to you, the experts, to figure that out. But I just feel like we're always beating the dead horse, so to speak, with this trade talk, because at the end of the day, it's a matter of what are you planning for? Are you willing to trade a pick for something that's going to be immediate benefit to the team, or are you trading a pick to get more prospects to stock the shelves, so to speak? So it kind of depends on what time frame you guys are looking at, I guess.
Yeah, and that's a question, that's I always think is kind of, when I talk to friends, Oilers fans, other Oilers fans, what is the time frame for most fans? I mean, obviously everybody says right now, right? But what's realistic for this team? I mean, if you, for those people that believe in Chiarelli's prospect pool that he's built up, what Sean, the Oil Knight there, says, we need to bridge the gap into next year. And he's got a good point. We've got a good foundation of talent next year. But cap space is a major issue for us. So how, whoever it is, if it's Chiarelli or if it's somebody to replace him, how do you do that? The scariest thing to me is that there is only a year left in McDavid's contract when the Lucic contract is up, right? Let that soak in, because we can't buy that contract out, right? And our only hope of really overcoming that, and I hate to, rag on Lucic, because I like the guy, right? Like I hate the contract, like the player, not in the role that he's being paid for, right? But how scary is that? We've got 1 year left in McDavid's contract. Lokes is 3 years. Like, what do you think? What would you be all right with waiting another year?
Well, a question that I'll propose to you guys is, with expansion, I know with the Vegas expansion, there was some play with contracts and stuff like that. Does that have any bearing with the Seattle expansion, with an expansion draft at all? Does that come into play at all?
Well, I think it would, other than, that's maybe not the only doozy contract we have, right?
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it may help, but it might give us a couple million in relief somehow. I mean, that might be the only true hope that we have of finding some creative way to get rid of that contract, right? Mike, your thoughts? I mean, do we have? Is there any hope with the?
Well, yeah. There's been a couple ideas that I've heard floated around to kind of dispose of that albatross, and if you buy them out, the savings after whatever is so minor that you might as well keep Lucic, because you're only going to be able to afford to bring in, pretty much a bare minimum contract anyways with the savings. So to me, it doesn't make any sense to trade them. I mean, at this point in time, if you're another organization, you'd probably want Edmonton to retain 90% of its salary anyway.
Right.
Right. Yeah, you deal them and you retain 50%. You include a first round pick, but to me, it's I don't know. It's going to take a GM, I think, a hell of a lot more creative than Peter Chiarelli to deal with that appropriately. That's beyond my pay grade. Maybe when Seattle does come on board, you can arrange some sort of deal to have them Lucic be their new captain as part of a way to make them take him. I don't know.
So, Jeff, while you're on, before you go, I've got 7 minutes left. So I was thinking about this today, and in fact, I was chatting with a buddy about this. The Oilers, and you and I kind of had some back and forth tweets on this too. The Oilers, need to do better in terms of a product, not just the on ice product, right? But we've got this amazing building. That the sound quality is not probably what it should be. I always thought maybe they could, mic the fans or something, and I don't even know if that's why they don't do that, or maybe there's some reason you don't do that. I don't know. I feel like there needs to be something in between plays to get people riled up, like going to a Flames game in the Saddle Dome, which is maybe as awful an experience from an arena standpoint as you can get, is a whole different energy experience. And this is the first year where that really, has changed because of the play of the team, because the team has been awful recently, right? Like, in recent years, right? So, we can't say that it had anything to do with the play of the team. So, like, what is there something stopping them from going that extra distance, right? Like, and can this be attributed right up to the top to the guys like Nicholson and Lowe and those guys, or is that a completely different group that manages that?
Everything, I'm not, obviously haven't been around the team or the organization for the last season, but what I can say is that everything is really tied together. There's a lot of decisions being made regarding the in-game entertainment, right down to the second, the play, the songs that they play. It's all very much planned out, and they critique it quite painstakingly. The in-game guys have a pretty tough job. So, like, you and I were going back and forth about improving the in-game experience. Ultimately, with the Edmonton fan base, what they are, it's the play on the ice it's going to turn the energy around in that building. But even so, like, it's been the same story. Like, even the '80s, Gretzky calling it the library. Like, it's yeah, because the fans are so knowledgeable, they watch the play, and they care about what's actually happening on the ice, as opposed to a market like Calgary, like some of the States market, where everybody just goes there to have a good time. If the team wins, that's great. But if they get on the screen and have beers and enjoy the experience, the entertainment, that's great. Where in Edmonton, it's just like if the team is doing bad, it doesn't matter what you do in the bowl. the crowd will just complain and complain. If McDavid scores a hat trick and we're in the playoffs, then the crowd is loving it, right? So I haven't been to a game yet, but I do know that they have the marching band now. They have. I've heard that they've done less fan camera on the scoreboard between plays and that kind of thing. So it's slowly moving towards something that's going to try to increase the overall experience. But until you fix the on-ice problem, that kind of helps with a lot of things. It helps loosen the purse strings regarding pouring money into extra things to entertain the fans and stuff. So I think if you fix the on-ice product, that'll help. But as we know, that we don't know when that's going to happen, right? So it's a weird, perfect storm right now. It's like the team's not doing well, so you want to have a better time at the rink. But as we all know as fans, until they start winning, it's tough to have a good time in the rink.
Yeah. No, that was fair comments. Guys, I've got 3 minutes left, so Jeff, stay on. What I want to hear from you guys before we close it up is after the next 7, sort of your prediction for the Oilers on the next 7, and are we looking at a playoff spot after the next 7? Jeff, you first, and then you can drop, and then Mike, and then I get the last word tonight. Because it's my show. Good.
Yeah, exactly. I'll phone in earlier next time so we can talk about hockey and stuff, our own play. But anyways, I think the next 2 are they should be slam dunk wins. They have a home stretch coming up that they really need to string together some wins. The game against Los Angeles was a huge disappointment. It took the win right out of my sails, and so it kind of makes you uneasy about the future. So in terms of playoff picture, I don't know. I don't see it in the group. I saw when Talbot got pulled and he made that long skate across the ice, he gave a long glare at that bench when he came off the ice. So that things are pretty stressed in that room right now. So until they can all unify and put some wins together, it's going to be a really hard stretch. But as always, I hope they do, and they've got an opportunity, especially in the next 2, to get it off on the right foot.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, well, I'll let you off. I'm not actually giving a prediction.
Thanks.
You weaseled your way out of there. You should consider some politics in your future.
All right, well, I'll keep listening, but have a good night.
Awesome. And for those that don't know, tune in, go on YouTube, follow Jeff at _the rinks. And he's got a program on or a channel on YouTube, and it's Rinks Around the League that he features every once a week, and fantastic. And you'll find your own favorite rink there, and a lot of great information. Thanks for doing that, Jeff, and thanks for calling in.
No problem.
All right, Mike, you're up. Your predictions. 7 games. You've got. We're actually out of time, but I'm going to let you go anyway.
Yeah, I'll be quick because I know you got to go and you want to play. Just one thought on the in-game experience. I think the way to get that rolling is to do what the Atlanta Falcons did in their new stadium, is lower the prices for concession, alcohol, everything, pretty much down to the basement. You already charge enough for people to get in there. You want everything to be happy even during a bad game. That's one way to do it, and that'll make the experience definitely more vocal too. So that's what I think on that front, and Atlanta's learned that by doing that they're actually making more money because people are buying more. And as far as the team goes, I think we're going to basically play right around 500 hockey until we get Clefbaum back. I don't think we make too much of a charge until we get him back. I think they hang around close enough to scratch and claw their way into a playoff spot come the end of the season. But between now and when Oscar gets back in the next, he'll probably be back after this 7-game stretch. They're probably right about where we are right now, sitting 2 points out. And the only reason for that is not because we're setting the world on fire. It's just because the guys that we need to catch aren't setting the world on fire either.
Yeah, so true. I think, at first, I want to say thanks again for joining me, Mike, live. You guys can follow Mike at Mike Dursa. It's on the screen if you're watching live. If you're listening on the radio, it's at Mike Dursa on Twitter. And Mike runs the Megathread every game quite consistently. I don't know if you've missed one, but it's great. And if you like Twitter notifications, then get in touch with Mike. If you don't, then forget you ever heard his name. Anyway, my thoughts on the next 7 games. The Oilers go. The homer in me says 5-2, but I think so much rides on the next 2 games and the confidence of this squad. They could, with the exception of they should really go 5-2, looking at the schedule that they have in these next 7. Is that realistic? I don't know. I want to believe it is, but as I said, that's the homer in me talking. I do think though that where they sit at the end of these 7 games dictates where this team is at the end of the season. And this is never. We've always talked about must wins, and I hate that because every game's a must win. It seems with this club, but this is such a must opportunity for the Oilers, especially against the teams that they're playing against. They should be able to beat. And in fact, I know Buffalo's a playoff team. If you take out their long stretch of wins, they've got one of the worst win percentages in the league. So we should be able to even beat Buffalo in there. So we have an opportunity to gain some momentum, get that sort of team back together, and really make a push. I still can't believe, I know they said it last night, 2 points out of a playoff spot. I actually went straight to the NHL standings to have a look, and it was true. And I don't know, I feel like I woke up in a dream when I found that out. That's amazing that we're still there. Guys, on Sunday, I'm going to go live again. I am hoping, and it looks like I'll have one of the Associated Press for the Buffalo Sabres online. So we're going to do a joint, I'm going to do a joint podcast live with somebody that writes on or about the other team. And, I did the one with the guys from the St. Louis Blues, one of the podcasts there, Let's Go Blues podcast. That was really fun. You get a little bit of a different perspective, and hopefully we get both fan bases in and listening and doing that. That'll be Sunday night at probably be a later one at 10 p.m. I'll be expecting Mary here to give me a call. It's Mike Dursa, and hopefully some of you can call in. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. Have a great night. We are out of here.
OILERSLIVE.